Being a Rangers supporter for most of the 1990s, especially the first half of the decade, must have been quite good fun. The Ibrox team dominated at home, if not abroad, and some of the club's greatest ever players, the likes of McCoist, Gorham and Gough, were in their prime. Trebles and doubles were collected and, just to add some icing to an already sweet cake, Celtic were a mess. To concentrate on the Walter Smith years, which ended with 9 league titles in a row and many cup final wins, Rangers lorded it over the rest. Triumphalism was the word of the day down Ibrox way, while their old friends across the city looked at one stage that they would out of business. Back then, when Celtic were knocked out of the Scottish Cup by Falkirk and Wayne Biggins was considered a footballer, those who wore green and white had only 2 things which prevented them from walking out to the back shed with a service revolver. Every so often they would win an Old Firm game and, on a few occasions, Rangers would take a doing in Europe. That was it. That's how low it got for Tims everywhere. It's why I found it hilarious when some fans, the younger ones, called Ronnie Dealer's team the worst Celtic team ever when beating Motherwell in Britpop time was viewed as something of a triumph. Celtic were hopeless, but in Paul McStay and John Collins, they had 2 fine players who, on their day, could inspire their otherwise hapless teammates to a win over Rangers, which usually closed the gap at the top to 15 points. In October, even the less than sensational Lou Macquarie won an Old Firm game, and at Ibrox as well. It was his first game as manager, and he even got a draw at the home of Rangers when Celtic fans were banned from the match. Rangers, of course, won more often than not and there were a few easy wins in there. But there were as many 10s or 21s with Gorham at one end and McCoist at the other proving the difference in a genuinely tight contest. And then there were the Champions League nights. You know you've hit rock bottom as a football supporter when the highlight of any season is watching your biggest rivals on the biggest stage losing a game your own team would have been lucky to score 0 in. But that's where Celtic were in the 1990s and, for a long time, the football club looked done. However, everyone did know how to solve the problems. The old families had to be shown the door, a new owner with money brought in, a move to Hampton so Celtic Park could be rebuilt, a share issue needed to be held, and some quality players signed. Fergus McCann paid for all of this, along with the punters, but the grand plan was hardly his because it was the obvious thing to do. But times have changed and this, now, is Celtic's time to hog the limelight. For those of a Rangers persuasion, the 50 thrashing by Paris Saint-Germain might just be the best thing to happen to them this campaign. Unlike Celtic of 25 years ago, this Rangers team aren't winning any Old Firm games and don't appear capable of laying a glove on their oldest rivals anytime soon. Not only that, but unless I'm missing something, there is no grand plan to turn things around. Not again. The plan, thus far, has been to get Dave King in and then appoint a man who couldn't win a league in Qatar. King is Rangers McCann, to a degree, and there are rich fans in the boardroom. The finances are okay again, but they are as far away from Celtic as Celtic were pre-Bunny. Pedro Caixinha is not the man for this movie. I will be stunned if he survives this season. His best and only hope is that he can get enough of a tune from his players to the extent they win the Betfred Cup, but you would get long odds on that. It's hard to say how much money was really spent in the summer, but in fairness to King and the board, they did provide funds, it's just that they were wasted and I don't think Caixinha will disprove this. Rangers are as far behind Celtic as they were ahead of the time when every goal for the home side was greeted with "sack the board" for those who had bothered to turn up. And sacking them did work. But this isn't a road Rangers will go down. Who would take over from an ousted board, which means this club will be forced to live in Celtic's shadow for generations to come. And another thing, well done to the Celtic fan who thought it was a great idea to take, and then throw, a flare at Ibrox. Some might say that it was the act of a Ned for whom reading a book without pop-up pictures is a challenge, but he, and will be some wee guy, will fight their corner in an articulate manner. It would go something along the lines of "no pyro, no party, bud." Size. Celtic as a club are heading for trouble. There is a real unsavory element among the support these days who seem hell-bent on getting fines and bans. The pro-era crap still gets belted out, as if that has any relevance to 21st century Scotland. And for those Rangers fans trying to take the moral high ground, it wasn't just few singing about pedos, Bobby Sands and the Billy Boys, which I am sure is still banned. And yet nothing will be said about it. This wee country of ours is brilliant, but a few of the citizens need to simply grow up. I won't hold my breath.